Alright, here's the other cylinder that blew out. I just got done stitching it back up, ground it out, welded up, yada yada yada. That's the whole length of the cylinder. It's not huge, but it's for the fingers on a scrap handler. Got me an extra bright light right here, one of these Milwaukee rocket tower things, I don't know. It's decent. For those wondering, my TIG setup is a Primeweld TIG 225 AC, TIG 225X, something like that. Running at 165, 166 amps. Foot control, obviously, right here. About, I think, 20 CFM on the argon. That's a liquid cooler. I've got a Miller extra small liquid cooled torch that's like 20 or 25 feet long. Works great for me. I am by no means an expert at TIG welding. I can do it. It holds. This will be the third one that I've done out of 4. They warranted the first one, and I think that was this one, the replacement one here. And they're blowing out. They're getting a lack of fusion right here in the heel of this weld, and it's blowing out right along the edge of it, like they didn't get enough heat into the head of the cylinder. Well, this barrel goes in a groove that's machined in this head, and it's leaking under the barrel around and blowing the weld out. It's, whenever I ground it out and started TIG welding it, I could see it. I could see the groove in here whenever it started to open up even more. And I burned it in there real good and deep. Yeah, the bushings on these things do not last any amount of time. Just sitting on kind of a tote thing here because, well, I just had to get it done. But yeah, there's that, and got me a little dumb cart with my stick leads over here hanging off the other side, some Portaband blades. Got a brand new set of welding gloves right there I ain't even got to use yet. I've been ready to use these guys. They're go all the way up to the elbow, and they've got a padded patch on them right here that's insulated that you're supposed to be able to lay your hand on, and they're real thick on the back of the hand. Here in the shop we use oxypropane because, well, all of our forklifts and stuff run propane, and it works plenty for what we need to do. I don't need acetylene for anything, but yeah, that's all that I just used it to preheat it to burn any oil out and wick all the moisture out of the steel. Which, if you ever think that you got steel that ain't wet, unless it's hot, it is. I promise you that. If you're TIG welding it or anything like that, or it's a critical weld, preheat it. Get the moisture out, period. Or you'll have all kinds of problems out of the weld. Like I said, by no means am I an expert or am I perfect at TIG welding, but so far, every one I've done has held. So, I don't know. Yeah, that welding machine right there, I'm beyond satisfied with it. It was $1,000 shipped to my door, and yeah, I got that on a smoking deal. I own that cylinder. I think I paid 150 bucks for it from Lindy. So yeah, I just pay them and they swap me out. Yeah, it's getting low. Yeah, I got to get another one coming. It ain't got nowhere near as much in it as I'd like it to have, but it'll do. The liquid cooler is old school. It actually came off. I have a humongous MIG welder that feeds out of a 55-gallon drum. It's actually a Hobart Hobart power supply, welding power supply. It's 100% duty cycle at 350 amps. It's set up with a wire feeder for MIG. You can use it for stick. You can use it for scratch start TIG too, DC only. But that's what that came off of, that water cooler there, the liquid cooler. Because the MIG torch that I've got for it is liquid cooled. And obviously this one is too. This setup might look not the greatest, but I don't, so what's it matter? I don't look the greatest, my stuff don't need to look the greatest. As long as it gets done, I let my work speak for me. This truck, I got the engine all put back together and it started backfiring through the intake on me again. It had burnt intake valves. That's why the head got ripped off of it. Put it all back together. Couldn't get it to run. It'd run for 2 or 3 seconds and die like you just shut the key off. You go to crank it again and it'd act like it was out of fuel. That's the return line. Here's the supply right here. I completely bypassed the entire fuel system thinking that it was something in these tanks. I put 2 100-gallon tanks on this truck because it had one 75-gallon. upgraded that. I put a Reman turbo on it in February. Hangs right here. And it lasted 20 miles before the inducer ring in it, I guess, broke. Something happened, and it turned so much that it completely blocked off the exhaust. When all these problems started happening, I took the exhaust loose at the diesel particulate filter down here, thinking, well, maybe it's stopped up with soot. There's no code for it or nothing, but hey, it's worth a try. Still wouldn't run. This morning, just before I started pulling it back down to see if there was something wrong with one of the valves, I even pulled the valve cover back off of it, double checked the set on the overhead, checked the timing, it's all perfect. There's two studs that come through the turbo with nuts right here, and then there's two in the manifold that go on here. I just took it loose and let it hang on the end of these studs where there was a gap. I could just about fit my pinky through, and it fired up and run perfect. I mean, of course, it was making all kinds of racket from blowing all the exhaust out right here, but it started and it ran. So I let it sit here and idle for a few minutes, shut it down, and tightened the turbo back up. Just started doing the exact same thing again. As soon as I tightened the turbo up, it started coughing and farting through the intake, blowing black smoke out of the intake where the manifold's supposed to be. And the only thing that's hooked up as far as that went was the turbo. The whole intake manifold's off the other side, so I know it's not an overboost situation or something ignorant like that. It had to be an exhaust restriction. And I'm sure it didn't have a head full of burnt valves. So like I said, I pulled the turbo loose and it run. It's getting warranted. There's the hot side turbo piping for the outlet of it. Here's the turbo. It's pretty good size. It's a big one. That's the variable geometry actuator. That right there is why I had to replace it. You have to calibrate these to the turbo and to the truck. Or you can get a complete Reman turbo that's already been calibrated. That's what I did. And the turbo spins. It's not locked up. I don't know if you can see it in there or not. Let me see if I can flip this around. Compressor side. Yeah, there you go. The turbo spins. It's been smooth. And I know that's not the problem, but it's got to be something in here in this inducer wheel. I cannot take it apart to find out or to avoid the warranty. They're warrantying it for me. I'll have a new one here in the morning, and I'll get that slapped on by tomorrow afternoon. And hopefully this thing will be able to go the rest of the way back together. That's the MIG welder I have here at work. It works good, but when I had an issue with it, I called Lincoln's customer support number. They told me that model is obsolete. They don't offer support for it anymore, and to get a new welder. That's why I don't own anything Lincoln. Unless you have their most latest and greatest stuff, good luck. I have an antique Hobart engine-driven welder that's 50 years old. I emailed Hobart with the model and the serial number, and within 24 hours, they emailed me back every document they had on it. The factory service manual, the operator's manual, wiring diagrams, the works. And they told me if there's anything else you need or you need any other help with it, don't hesitate to reach out. Like I said, I got a hold of Lincoln. They said basically FO if it's older than a few years because they don't support that model anymore. So yeah, even the stinger on it isn't original Lincoln. It's a Radnor from Airgas because we've got one of them relatively local to us that we can go and get parts for today if we need to. Yeah, there's my portable desk there. But yeah, hopefully this turd will be able to go back together tomorrow. I would start it, but the oil supply line for the turbo is off, and it will make a huge mess of oil on the floor if I do. So yeah, anyways, that's been my Saturday, Monday, and Tuesday so far. Thank y'all.